Today on the Coaching Life podcast.
We say in one breath we're saying, well, playing time isn't that important. In another breath we're saying winning is very important, and people have a hard time, reconciling those two things. We're not talking about just winning on the floor, being successful in practice, being successful in the classroom, right? Being successful at home, when we're out in the world and we're with our friends and we're out maybe without as much supervision as what we normally have, and doing the right things, winning. That all that kind of wraps up into this idea of a culture of winning, and that includes every single player on the team.
One day, you're going to find yourself sitting on the couch. You're going to be in your mid-20s, late 20s, and you're going to regret not doing what you needed to do to be the best that you can be at something you're so talented at. And you're going to waste your talent, and you're going to watch guys who weren't as talented as you. You're going to watch them go out there and compete and play and do things that you could have done. So get it together, because there's no more excuses. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Coaching Life podcast. This is episode 81. My name is Chris Stewart, and I'm here with my good buddy, Patrick Martin.
All right. What you got?
You got to go by 11.
Yeah, close to.
I want to read a quote to you, if you don't mind, from Michael Strahan, Hall of Famer.
Okay.
Hall of Famer Michael Strahan.
All-time single-season sack leader.
Yes.
I think he still holds that.
Yeah, he's become a great news personality in the morning. He's had a lot of opportunities on TV after his NFL career.
Yeah, he's got a certain charisma about him. Do you remember the record sack that he had? The sack that actually broke the record?
Yeah.
You do remember it?
It was the one where Brett Favre went down and they argued whether or not Favre did it on purpose. Yeah.
Yes. Here's the thing, if you got a 285-pound guy, chiseled rock physique running at you, falling down is a pretty good option.
How many times have you seen Tom Brady do it? QB 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does it all the time. Right? Exactly. Yeah. What is he, 44? Is he that old?
I don't know. I told Jeremiah I thought he was 42 yesterday. I wasn't for sure.
42 may be right. I don't know. He seems like he's been in his 40s forever. I think he's 3 or 4 years younger than me. It's just hard to believe. It's just really hard to believe. I mean, I feel good. I feel good. I feel like I've been in decent shape in my 40s, but man, there's a whole different level of being in shape and taking hits from 340-pound guys like he,
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. We were talking about Frank Gore.
Yeah,
Frank Gore's 37.
He looked good, didn't
running
he?
back.
Yeah.
Well, I think he just passed Emmitt Smith for all-time rushing yards. He did that against the Browns. That's neat. Tom Brady's 43 years old.
Yeah, 43.
Turned 43 in August.
Okay.
So he's there. So you got a quote from Michael Strahan.
Yes. And this is actually so as you and I are talking right now, news came out yesterday that Dwayne Haskins was going to be released by the Washington football team. And we actually, this is something I mentioned to you a couple weeks ago. I think that his NFL career days were numbered based on his behavior currently and what everyone seems to say about him. Obviously, it's really easy for people who sit behind microphones to say, "Oh, look, the way this guy behaves and the way this guy doesn't do this or that." But there's also, I think, something to be said, because we don't really know. We're not friends with him. We don't run in those same kinds of circles. I don't have a clue on a personal first person level what his work ethic is like. But the more you read people who are in those circles, and the more you hear them talk about, the word we get is that he doesn't enjoy the stuff behind the scenes as much as he enjoys the limelight stuff, right? The film study, the really being, everything that it takes to be a good NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
That's what does not include cameras, right?
Yeah.
And so Washington had enough, and they released him.
Yeah, and just to kind of fill that in, he basically skipped out on his media responsibilities, which I think is absolutely ridiculous from an athletic perspective.
Sure.
But it's one of his responsibilities. He has to do it. He's got to get up in front of the media after the game, and he's got to talk. And that's part of being a leader too. So, and then on top of that, he wasn't responding to the Washington football team's PR team's calls. They're trying to track him down and find out where he was, and he wasn't responding to those. So
he would.
It's a good lesson.
I gotta wonder if he would have had the same response on a good day.
Well,
which
yeah,
know
right.
Is not
obviously not. Yeah, true. And I think that gives you perception is important. I think it's a good lesson for young players out there to know that you are under a microscope a lot of times, especially if there are if you're in high school and there's colleges out there that's paying attention to you. Mm-hmm. They want to see how you respond in unique situations, and one of those situations that they're looking at is the tough ones.
Absolutely.
The struggle.
I read a tweet yesterday. We're getting a little away from my original thought here, but I'll come back to it. We'll circle back to it. But this is This is on your point. Bad. I read a tweet yesterday from a guy who I don't even remember who it was, so it's going to be difficult to quote exactly. But this is the general nature of it. I believe he actually he is playing professionally now. He said that his senior year of high school, he got hit around really, really bad. Did you read that? Do you remember who it was?
I think I did. I don't remember who it was.
Because I liked it, so it may have shown up. If you're not following this person, you may have seen it too. But he got hit around really bad on the mound. He was a pitcher. And it really concerned him because he spent a lot of time working hard to be recruited and he really felt like he was a Division I talent. He was being courted by some Division I schools, and he said just had a bad senior year. He said it really did. He said he couldn't get the outs he thought he should have been able to get, and he was concerned that his recruiting stock was going to go way down. And he said to his delight and his surprise, it was the opposite. He actually did end up with a great opportunity, and it happened to be a Division I pitcher. And he was told later that they wanted to see how he handled that kind of adversity in high school. They knew, we knew what kind of pitcher, we knew what your upside was. We knew who you were. We knew what we were going to get if we recruited you. The fact that you had a poor year, your senior year, was actually to your benefit.
Yeah.
That's an incredible thing to consider.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Michael Strahan had this to say on December 27th, which, by the way, was the day before Haskins was released. This was not after Haskins was released. This was the day before, which happened to be, I think, on the Sunday of after the strip club stuff and all that. So I don't know if this was before the game they lost or not, but all I know is that right now the Dallas Cowboys' best chance of getting in the playoffs was Dwayne Haskins. So I'm a little disappointed that
they. Yeah. Alex Smith is back now, so
I know it makes me a little nervous this week, but oh well. Dallas didn't deserve to be in the playoffs anyway. So this is what Michael Strahan said. Said it bothers me. This guy's his antics, right? His what Haskins' behavior is basically the context here. It bothers me, makes me mad. Strahan said, as fellow analyst Jimmy Johnson nodded in agreement. So this must have been on the NFL Game Day show. You work so hard to get to a certain point in your life. You wanted to make it to the NFL. Now you're in the NFL, and a lot of guys think, "Oh, I'm drafted. I'm in the NFL. I've made it." No, you haven't. You're just in the NFL. And this goes as quickly as it comes your way. Mm. So then Strahan delivered this warning toward Dwayne Haskins, which was a day late and a dollar short, but it's worth hearing. He says the NFL is very impatient. They don't have time to babysit. They will not babysit a grown man. So the more of these things that you keep on doing, the less patience that Washington is going to have with you, which in turn means the rest of the league isn't going to want you either. And one day, you're going to find yourself sitting on the couch. You're going to be in your mid-20s, late 20s, and you're going to regret not doing what you needed to do to be the best that you can be at something you're so talented at. And you're going to waste your talent, and you're going to watch guys who weren't as talented as you, weren't picked as high as you. You're going to watch them go out there and compete and play and do things that you could have done. So get it together because there's no more excuses. I hate watching guys throw away their opportunities. It bothers me. Look, it's not an accident that Michael Strahan's in the Hall of Fame. And guys who have that mentality, that's easy to see it in guys that don't. And that's what we're seeing here. That's what he saw.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know that that is actually relegated to the NFL.
It's definitely not. That's why I wanted to mention it to you.
Yeah, right. Obviously, the there's so many things. There's so many points to touch on that within what he was saying there. But definitely, as you in any program, you have your opportunity, regardless of where you are. Right? Maybe this ties into what we're going to talk about today. Regardless of where you are in regards to, I guess what I would say, your role on the team, you have an opportunity to impact that role, to modify that role, or to in some people's view, increase the role that you have on the team. And if you're a high school athlete, you may never go and play a college sport. Definitely the possibility of playing a professional sport is very, very small. But you may never go play a college sport either. And you can still wake up and feel bad about the decisions that you made and the wasted opportunity that you had. And a lot of time that kind of manifests itself in understanding that you didn't know as much as what you thought you knew. I think I have that regret a lot of times when I'm as I'm working with my kids and talking to coaches now, the information that we have available to us via the internet and social media and whatnot is just, it's so different than the information that was available. I'm not that old, Coach. The internet was still around. It just wasn't as it was still around when I was in high school and junior high, but it's just not as refined. It's not as used. It wasn't as used back then as what it is now. And there's so much information to have, and I think about the way that I've been taught, nothing that I know I've created, at least nothing that I can think of. I've stolen every bit of information that I have as a coach and as a person. But when I'm relaying these things to my kids, I think, man, I kind of wish that I had this knowledge when I was in high school. But you know what?
Shoot, much has changed even since 2015 in the last 5 years.
Absolutely.
I mean, to your point, I mean, there's constantly so many more opportunities right now than I had even coaching 5 years ago. It's incredible, the resources that are there. So I'm sorry, go ahead. You're about to.
Well, I was just going to say that it's almost an excuse, really, because I had some knowledge. I had people in my life telling me, you need to do this, you need to do that. And there's definitely things that I could have done more. I had that resource and I didn't use it, always to maximum benefit. So there's always that time that you can look back and know, whether you did all you could do to be the best person and player that you can be. And at the end of the day, that's really what drives or should drive an athlete. And this is a cornerstone of what we talk about on the Coaching Life podcast, of being the best person that you could be every single day of your life, because that in anything that you want to accomplish in life, that's the, kind of one of the very fundamental aspects of reaching that goal. And there's no fingers to point. There's no people to blame. It's what are you going to do to enhance the circumstances that you're in. And, ultimately that's what it comes down to. And in this player's case that we're talking about, it seems like, you say we don't know what's behind the scenes. I'm sure Dwayne Haskins has spent a lot of time preparing and working to get to the point that he's gotten to in his professional career. But to Strahan's point, there's never a time to stop.
Yeah.
So you got to keep pushing. You got to keep getting better. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. I think that's
Sure.
I don't think I know. It's a challenging order to wake up every day and try to win that day. It's hard. It's supposed to be, I guess.
It is supposed to be hard, and it is hard. These are questions that get brought, I think, to players from a number of different angles. Especially these are questions that coaches, I think, sometimes will want to ask a player, especially when a player is, well, one, not performing to their full potential, but two, wondering why they're not getting opportunities that maybe some others are getting. And sometimes it's the player that's wondering that. Sometimes in a youth sports context, or high school sports context, any amateur sports context, I'm sure sometimes it's not just the kids that are wondering it. It's mom and dad as well, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle. There's all kinds of people that might be wondering that are related to this person that's on the team. And one of the conversations that I've been wanting to have with you for a while, because that's what this podcast is about, it's just open and honest, candid conversations. We talked about. It says in our headline there, if you look this podcast up, it's just, hey, open and candid conversations. And sometimes we'll just throw out a topic and just start talking about it. And it's kind of what I wanted to do today. One of the questions that I have been pondering is, you see, especially in certain areas of the world or certain areas of, I guess, the country, and I almost said that this happens more in small town rural areas than in larger areas, but really, I don't know that. I think if we did a study, I'm not sure that we would see that. I'm not sure that we would see what I'm about to say, and that is coaching changes so often take place because it's hard to be a coach. What I mean by coaching changes is coaches often just bail or quit or decide, they'll get in it for a couple of years, particularly high school scholastic sports coaching. Scholastic sports coaching, middle school coaches or high school coaches. You're currently a middle school coach. I've been a high school coach. Would love to get back into it again someday when COVID's all over and all that. But but there's a reason why it's tough. And I think those are some of the things. There are a lot of reasons why it's tough. And those are some of the things I think I want to talk about, because you do see it happen a lot. But you also see there are some circumstances and some scenarios where the environment, it must be different, because you'll see coaches who have stayed there for 30-some, 40-some years. And you'll see, this legendary coach, he stays there for a long time. What causes that coach to want? Is it the coach? I mean, is he just a little more resilient? Is he tougher? Is he thicker skinned? Maybe, perhaps that's part of it. But is there something else about it as well? Is it a certain culture? And I really think that there's a culture issue where you have so many coaches being turned over year after year after year, or 1 or 2 years later, okay, we're hiring another coach. 1 or 2 years later, we're hiring another coach. 1 or 2 years later, we're hiring another coach. And I think one of the reasons for that is because coaching is really hard. And one of the really difficult things about coaching, and I think one of the points that I would like to bring out here, just to see, I know we have a lot of coaches who listen. Just spoke with one this morning who, reached out and said he listens, and he's been sharing it with other coaching friends because he feels like it's really rich, good resource. And so
appreciate that.
Yeah, I do very much appreciate that. And here's one of the things that we might hear, echoing out in podcast land, some amens after I say this, and that is this. One of the things that makes coaching difficult is this. Sometimes you have to choose between one or the other, coaching or friendships.
It's hard.
Being a coach or having friends. Have you found that to be true in any case at all?
I with a long, dreadful pause. I see it to be true. Or
maybe you see how it can be true.
Yeah. I don't think, and for me, it's something that if we want to get candid here, I jump on the old counselor's couch and just, it all started when I was 8 years old. Now, it's very important to me as a person. I think one of my a trait of my personality is that I want people to like me. Mm-hmm. Right. I like people, and I want people to like me. And when I know someone is upset with me, it bothers me. It does. Mm-hmm. And so, when it comes to coaching, that's something that has been a huge hurdle for me as a coach, because it's just a fact of life that if you're coaching and you're coaching in a way that you feel like you're giving your absolute best to a group of kids or young adults, you're not going to make everybody happy. That's just the way it is. There's no way around that. I would say for me, because I've spent so much time, so much of my coaching experience has been with younger kids, with 12U kids, that you're usually placed in situations that the biggest topic that comes up that causes these feelings is usually playing time. Why isn't my kid playing?
Doesn't change much when they get to be 18 either, to be quite honest.
Well, right. Yeah. What I'm saying is, when you're younger, your teams are usually smaller. They're usually built around the understanding that all these kids
it's easier to accomplish the playing time issue. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And, so I haven't been exposed to it as much. However, I have been exposed to it to a certain degree. And I'm coaching junior high, and I've had some experience coaching junior varsity baseball. So I've been there.
That's the level. You're at the level now where that needs to start changing, which sometimes makes it even harder than the high school level, because we're so used to a certain way when we're 12, but now we're 13 and 14, and we need to learn that not everyone is equal, to be quite honest, in their ability, in their playing time, in their, fair doesn't mean equal. Those are not synonymous terms.
Yeah, fair doesn't equal equal.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Twister. But the thing is, here's very simple. Don't place your value to a team simply on the amount of time that you're on the court or on the field. The number of innings you play, or the number of minutes you play in a football game or a basketball game, because you can bring value to a team, and you do bring value to a team, value that maybe you don't even understand you're bringing to a team. In a lot of ways, you can have an impact on that team. But I think,
But Pat, I'm bringing my mom and my dad, my child's grandma and grandpa's coming. This is the only game they can come to this year. And my kid might have a lot of value because of the way they help out the team in practice, and they're not good enough to be on the floor. But by gosh, can you not at least put them in the game a little bit?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that the rub though? I mean, because so often kids, I think, understand this better than parents do. Kids understand because they're there. They're working. They're getting the fulfillment of practice. And I think sometimes when mom and dad writes that letter to you, or that email, or sends that text, or gets on social media and makes a group message post or whatever, and they say, well, my kid feels this way, or my kid feels that way, I wonder sometimes just how much the kid actually does feel the exact same way as you. Because I kind of want to contest that a little bit. Because I sometimes see the look in kids' faces, and I see, they might have disappointment because they would really like to be playing more. And everybody wants to play more.
Absolutely. But I still want to play as a coach.
I still do too. But there's a level of contentment in that look on their face as well that is not the same when you look at the parent. It's so hard because you and I know, and our whole audience probably know, and people who listen to us probably know as well. Oh yeah, I agree. Amen. There is a lot more. There's a lot more to your role, and there's a lot more that you can bring to the team and I can't define my level of importance as, how much time I get on the court. We all hear that and go, yeah, I know that. But why is it so difficult for us to get the people who need to embrace that in order to change the culture, in order to make it a better place for a coach to coach, to really, truly internalize that and say, yeah, okay, I'm going to really try. I'm going to try. I don't get it now, but I'm going to try to work on embracing this and understanding this and being more patient with my coaches, because I know that's all true. And some people just don't think it's true, I don't think, or they're not willing to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not something that, society talks about. Society talks about the winners. They talk about, the starters. They talk about the people that excel on the floor, on the court, on the field, and they're emphasized, to everybody. They're the ones that's in the spotlight, and that makes it tough to see the back end of that. I think that's one of the great things about the internet now and social media. Mm-hmm. I think we've talked about before the Patriots Super Bowl win over, I think, the Los Angeles Rams. I think the year that the Patriots played the Rams, the last time, I know they played them earlier. I think recently they played them. Recently might have been in the last 10 years. It's easy to lose time, especially the Patriots been so many Super Bowls. This is the first year in 11 years not going to the playoffs. But anyway, to the point, Tom Brady said that one of the key players of the Patriots Super Bowl win that year was the backup quarterback, Ryan Hoyer.
I remember that.
Yeah, because he, in practice, he spent time studying the opposing team's playbook, and he understood what they would do in certain situations. And there was actually a time that came up during practice that the defense was set up in a certain alignment, and Brian Hoyer did something, specific to beat the defense. And he told them, this is what they're going to do. They like to do it. I watched it, and I saw it on their film. And that same situation came up in the game. The defense knew how to react to it, and they actually got a turnover off the play because the backup quarterback, had an impact on, how they saw the certain play and the certain situation of the game. So it would be nice to hear more stories like that, but it's hard to find those stories. And I think that's the problem that we have. But I think, we use the word all the time, and I think it's the truth. It's a matter of culture and understanding of, how, where you fit in a team. So many people think that if you're not playing, then you're not contributing to the team. And that's just, it's not true. It's false, and you can have huge impacts on a team, by not playing. So it's a culture thing. It's something that we need to talk about more.
Yeah.
As players, as parents, we need to focus more on coach. I know that you've been in a situation where you have went to watch your kids play and they didn't get to play.
Sure.
I have been in a situation where I went and watch my kid play in games, and they played, but they didn't play very much. Mm-hmm. They were very limited in playing. And not to toot my own horn, and maybe it's because I know, I've had these conversations with people, but you recognize something at some point, and it's that if you want something, you have to work for it, right? And the bottom line is this: some people work their butt off, right? Some people work as hard as they can, and they never achieve what they're working for, what they want. But your purpose, your drive, has to be that not that you're accruing milestones, that you're collecting achievements, that you're gaining trophies, but that you're getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that you get better through failure, right? So you prepare yourselves for other things in life through failure. So, but the bottom line is this, coaches are going to play who they think gives the team the best chance to win the game.
Yeah.
Because at the top of all this, whether anyone wants to admit it or not, winning is a very fundamental part of competition. And
that's what I wanted to get to. I'm glad you got there. The word winning, because that's the difference. That truly is the difference. If you want to know what the difference is between a good program and a bad program, it's this issue of winning.
Between the coaches that stay there for 3 years and the coaches that stay there for 40 years.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that the coach that stays there for 40 years always had a winning season.
True.
Because there were times when they didn't. But the difference, it's a fundamental, philosophical, even cultural difference. Winners versus players. Winning versus playing. And what I mean by that is this. Programs who have a culture where everyone buys into winning. Everyone wants to win. Those are your good programs. Those are the ones that when you look at it, you're like, they don't have the same kinds of problems we do. What's the deal, right? You asked me a question a couple weeks ago. What's different about Trimble, right? When did they? Yeah. Trimble's this little small town, podunk town here in Southeast Ohio that had the economic. They're behind the 8 ball in every possible way. Where they're located economically, they don't have the same resources as everyone else. For crying out loud, the stadium fell in a couple years ago, and they still went to the state semifinal. I mean, they have a way of winning every single year. And one of the things, and here's the thing, winning is important to everyone there. They want to win. Winning, they understand that winning, being a winner, is a bigger goal than being a player. And so when I say that a program who has a culture of winning and everyone buys into winning, everyone wants to win, that's different than a program that has a negative culture where everyone wants to play. I think there's a big difference in a culture of winning versus a culture of playing, and I think that's what happens is if you get sucked in, if you start going down what's the word I'm looking for?
Funnel spiral.
The negative spiral. The into the black hole of negativity. What's the negativity usually based on? I didn't get enough playing time. My kid's not playing enough. Why is that kid playing over mine? Why is that kid playing over mine? What's going on? As opposed to, why aren't we winning?
Yeah.
Why aren't we winning? Why aren't we winning? And that's got to be everybody's mindset. I mean, you might have one person here or there that pops up and says, my kid's not playing enough. But I tell you what, in a culture of winning, you have enough people sitting up in them stands saying, you know what, though? Look at the scoreboard, bud. Look at the scoreboard. Yeah. Every single week, we're on top of that scoreboard because of the tough decisions that those coaches have to make every single day to put the players on the floor, on the field, who we know is going to give us the best chance of winning. And sometimes that includes your kid, sometimes it doesn't. But it's not about whose kid it includes. It's about the fact that the team, the name on the front of those jerseys, is winning day in and day out every year, and that's what we want here. Sometimes those people have got to step up and say, you know what, we're not having this other crap. We're not having this here. That's not what it's going to be about here. And yeah, the coach can do that. But this is also a word to the parents out there. This is a word to those families who get it. You're one of those families that get it, right? I feel like I'm one who gets it. So we've got to cry this out. We got to shout this out, right? Hey, this is who we want to be, folks. Either get on board or go somewhere else. Take your negativity somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree. And when we, there's like there's an issue there because we say, in one breath we're saying, well, playing time isn't that important. In another breath we're saying winning is very important, and people have a hard time, reconciling those two things. We're not talking about just winning on the floor. about winning every single day. That includes winning in practice, right? Getting, being successful in practice, being successful in the classroom, right? Being successful at home, when we're out in the world and we're with our friends and we're out maybe without as much supervision as what we normally have, and doing the right things, winning. That all that kind of wraps up into this idea of a culture of winning, and that includes every single player on the team. Right?
Absolutely. What makes those kids
even
proud?
Includes those.
Yeah, the ones you're talking about that don't get to play very much. What makes them proud to wear that varsity jacket around the hallway? What makes them proud to wear that shirt that says such and such high school or such and such team? What makes them proud is the fact that they're successful. They win. That program wins, not how much they played. You won't see that because a kid gets a lot of playing time.
Hey, you want to know a very important part? Me and my older son Jake had this conversation yesterday. You want to know a very important part of a high school basketball team? A very important part of a high school basketball team is the student section.
Oh, yeah, we know that right now, don't we? Because that's the missing. Absolutely. That's the missing part.
That's what actually brought the conversation on. Is Jake said, man, basketball seems so different.
Yeah, it provides adrenaline, doesn't it? Yeah,
absolutely it does. And I said to Jake, I said, you know what? It does make a difference, but you got to have leaders in the student section.
Yeah, you do.
You got to have winners. You got to have people that understand. They got to to corral people together, to get them working in the same direction.
You'll still have the ones over there that aren't into it. They're just sitting over there.
Oh, absolutely,
because it's the student section.
Sure.
Yeah,
but you got to have that group. That's part of a high school basketball program, right? Yeah. And for me, if I was and I've known coaches to do this, if I was a head coach of a basketball program, I would seek that out. That would be one thing that I made sure that I tried to have during games. Hey, because
can I tell you something? I used to teach at Eastern High School back when Howie Caldwell was there, who's now at Trimble, ironically enough, coaching basketball.
Right.
And I remember the first year that I was there, one of the most intriguing things to me was this. At the very first home basketball game that night, that Friday, when basketball season came in, we had a pep rally. That Coach Caldwell, ran the entire time. And what he did was he told the students how to be a good student section, what the kinds of cheers he wanted them to do while the team was warming up. When we come out, he brought the team out. He showed them how they were going to warm up. He said, hey, when we do this drill right here, where we it's kind of a fun, fast drill while we're warm up, this is a good time for you to start perking up because it's the last drill we do before they announce the teams, before the big announcement of the starting lineups. That's when the student section needs to get up, go get your pop, go mingle around. But when we start doing this, I want everybody on your feet, clapping your hands together, and that's when the energy starts. He says when we get on a big run and the opposing team calls a timeout, that's when you go crazy. That's when he says we're going to practice that. We're going to show you. He literally was intentional about helping students be part of their basketball games.
Wow, that's smart.
It is.
That's smart. Yeah, there you have an example of a coach coaching a group of kids that are to have an impact on a game, to have an impact on winning, because they do. They have such a big impact. But he's coaching these kids that never
even put a uniform on.
They don't even wear a uniform. They're not going to play a minute.
Right.
And they don't expect to play one single minute in those games, but they're going to make an impact. They're part of that program.
I will say this as well.
That's heavy.
As a teacher at that school, and I was a teacher who also was very involved in athletics. I was an assistant coach of the baseball team during some times when both the basketball team was really good. Football team was not as good. The baseball team was just okay during that time. The Eastern baseball team has been very good for several years. Yeah. Again, coach has been there 26 years.
Yep.
I don't know. I can't remember in class, because you'll hear kids talking as they come into class, throughout the sports season, and you hear their conversations and things. I can't remember hearing anyone complaining about their playing time, and I knew some kids who didn't play at all, like kids that played on that basketball team who just never got in ever. 20 seconds left in the game, they may have gotten in a little bit, right? But never. Man, they were proud to be part of that team.
Yeah.
Very proud.
Well, the environment doesn't allow for it. Go
right.
ahead.
But I'll bet it was still, just because I know this as a parent, I'll bet it was still a little hurtful for the parents, though, that their kid didn't get in. But how do I respond to that? You can't control the hurt. You can't control the disappointment when you really want your kid to be out there. But what you can control is how you respond to it and how you speak to your child about their experience, and just step back and recognize that the child may actually be really having a great experience. They may actually be having a great experience.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And, disappointment's not a bad thing, in regards to that conversation, in regards to just, people in general. Disappointment's not a horrible thing, and it doesn't matter. You're always going to find something. I was talking to one of our players yesterday in practice, and he said, I had a really horrible last game that we played. And I said, I want you to think of 3 things that you did wrong, and get back to me here in a few minutes. So then, I went back over to him and said, okay, well, one thing I didn't do, I missed a bunch of shots. And I said, okay. And he said, then I was missing rebounds. And I think, he said, I got 2 charges called against me. And I said, okay. I said, 1, everybody misses shots. You made some too. That ended up being pretty important. 2, you always get a lot of rebounds. You may not have got as many as you wanted, but you got a lot of rebounds. And 3, you did get 2 charges, but when you're such a big, strong kid that after having 2 charges, no player on that team wanted to take another charge from you.
Yeah,
they were
right,
intimidated.
Right.
You know what I mean? I said, what you have to remember is that you're a presence on the floor. And I just bring that up because there's always going to be a level of disappointment. You could play every minute of the game, and something bad can happen to you that causes disappointment, that there needs to be discussion about, that you need to reflect on to figure out, what you need to do to remove that disappointment in your life. That's growing. That's getting better. That's being better. And there's the focus right there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the detail is. It matters what are you thinking about, and how are you going to respond to it to get better? And that's an opportunity that a lot of times, when as parents we say, well, the kid didn't get a fair shot, or he's not playing as much, or something like that. She's not playing the position that she should be, things like that. It's opportunities that a lot of time, I'm not saying everybody misses these opportunities, those conversations might happen and no one ever knows about it, but they are big opportunities that we can take to help our kids, help each other, be better.
Yeah. No doubt. Man,
we got a little off topic, didn't we?
I don't even know what the topic was. There are so many quotes that come, there are questions and quotes that come into my mind as we have this conversation that I should just write them down, and we should just throw them out there sometime just for the fun of it. What I mean is comments that you hear that are so common across the board. It'd be so great to just get a bunch of people together from a bunch of different school districts, a bunch of different teams, a bunch of different programs. And I'm talking about coaches, I guess I should say specifically, and throw out these comments and say, has anybody ever heard these? Oh yeah. Because it's comical sometimes, right? Because as you're talking, you're like, my kid's not getting an opportunity. Have you ever heard this one? Well, the team couldn't do any worse. Why aren't you putting my kids in? The team couldn't do any worse than they are with the ones you got in there, right?
Yeah.
How do you handle that as a coach?
Yeah.
I mean, what is being said in that statement? What's being said in that question, or asked in that question?
Well, they're kind of using our winning statement against us there.
Mm-hmm.
But the simple fact of the matter is, again, you win in some very small increments.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're getting blown out by 30 going into the the last quarter, you can still win that quarter, right? You can still win the last minute of a game. You can still win the last half inning of a baseball game or a softball game. So the winning never stops. But what they're saying is, well, really what they're saying is what's important to us is that in this situation, our kid gets playing time.
Yeah, because
or I get playing time.
Sure, because here's the thing. Well, what's being said there is that very thing, because everyone is upset about the fact that we just lost, or we've lost the last three, and we've losing this one really badly, right? And so the comment comes out, well, it's not going to be any different. So everyone in the stands is just they're down. They're not. I mean, especially if you have a winning culture, even you're not excited about that game. The parent whose kids are not in the game are not excited, but for a different reason. So you put their kids in the game, and by their own admission, same result, not going to be any different, right? Most likely, not going to be any different, but they go home happy.
Yeah.
That's the difference between a culture of winning versus a culture of playing. In a culture of winning, you're not going home happy after that game, regardless if your kid got in the game or not, because you want to win. You want the team and the program to win. And that's what
good word, Coach.
Listen, Mom, Dad.
It's heavy.
I'm going to tell you something, Mom and Dad, Grandma, Grandpa, Aunt, Uncle. That's what your coach wants. That's what he wants. That's what she wants. To win.
Call whatever you want. Well, you call whatever you want. People say, well, the coach only cares about himself. He only wants to win. Well, some coaches do, right?
Some coaches do, but it's not just about yourself, because everyone gets to feel good.
But exactly.
Everyone except for the people who are pissed because their kid didn't get in a game, right? I mean,
right. But those are the good coaches. But the thing is, bottom line is, regardless of what the coach's mindset is, they're going to play who they think is going to win the game.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So because it's either selfishly or it's holistically.
And you may agree or disagree, but the fact is that's just the way it's always going to be. And it's not going to be any different until you're the coach, and then you get to find out on the other side of the spectrum what it's like to field those same kinds of comments and disgruntlements. Because you're going to have to make the same decisions. Because guess what, Mom, Dad? In a basketball game, you can't play 9 players. In a baseball game, you can't start 12 unless it's a 10U game and you're batting the roster.
Right.
Only certain number. And here's the other thing about baseball. I mean, some people, I remember fielding some of these questions about, why can't you get my kid in? Here and there and there. Well, in a football game, you can run them in and out whenever you want. Basketball, pretty much the same thing. Baseball, as soon as you make a substitution, it's locked in. That the kid you substituted him in for, he's done. I mean, you can re-enter the starter in high school and all that, but it's just a whole lot different in some of these sports.
Right? It's a lot difficult in baseball.
Yeah, and people don't take into consideration, I think, some of the things that these coaches really are having to determine. And sometimes, to be quite honest, I could see this happening in a basketball game very easily. Sometimes a coach can get so caught up in the game that maybe he wanted to substitute more, but just didn't. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. But and it's not because he hates your kid. It's not because he doesn't think your kid's any good. It's not because it just sometimes it just happens. These are not perfect people, and we need to extend. We talked in the last podcast episode about extending grace. We just need to learn to extend more grace. One of the things I'll say to coaches too, and something to a point that you began with, and that is, a personality trait that you have is that you want to be liked. I think it's really difficult for anyone to not want people to like them. I mean, I really do. I mean, I like sometimes to come off hard and say, "Oh, it's just what you got to do. If you don't like it, you don't like it." But
it's just the weaker ones that admit it.
No, that's not true either. But honestly, I've lost sleep many nights because of the same thing. Because everyone who coaches and the more competitive the level it is, the fewer friendships outside of coaching, I should say, you actually have.
That's why so many coaches have coach friends, right?
That's exactly right. That's why the coaching fraternity and those coaching friendships that seems to be that are a lot easier to gain today in today's social media world than they were 20 years ago. I mean, you talked to Gibby. We should have actually had Gibby on for this episode. We actually talked with him about this briefly in one of the 2 episodes we did with him. But one of the things that Coach Gibson, my primary, I had a lot of mentors, but he's been my primary mentor in coaching world, told me very early on when I was assisting him was basically this very scenario is that he learned pretty early on that as a coach that if he loved coaching, he needed to get used to the idea that he wasn't going to have very many friends, if any at all. So he said he and his wife, Pat, they've become very good friends over the years because he said pretty much that was the only friend I had for a bunch of years because you just can't, something happens there. Something happens where your friendship with someone is superseded by their love for their children and their concern for the fact that they feel like you're not giving them a fair shot, and it just creates a wedge in those kids in those friendships, I should say.
Well, and you have mutual friends too that kind of fill in the middle, so they at that point they shy away from one or the other.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And they're not going to shy away from. They're going to shy away. The other is going to be you, coach.
Because you're coaching, so you're not in the crowd with them. You're not sharing conversations with them as much because you're doing other things.
And honestly, you shouldn't be. I mean, there should be a separation there, and the healthy coach parent relationships, there is a separation there. And there's a fine line because there has to be really good and constant communication. I believe the best coaches are the ones who do communicate very clearly with their parents. They're open to communication in both ways. About certain things, not so much, right? I mean, whenever we talk about these issues that we've been talking about a lot today, the playing time issues, I would much rather put that in the hands of the young men and women that I'm coaching and say, look, they're learning to be adults. And one of the things that you learn as you become an adult is how to advocate for yourself. If you have questions about your role in the team and how you can maybe increase that on game day, then send your child to me because they're the ones that are in control. They need to take ownership of their experience. This is their experience, not yours. You had your shot when you were 12 through 16, 17, 18 years old. This is their experience. Give them the experience. Give the experience. Give the game back to the kids. You and I have talked about that back in podcast episode 40-some, I think. That's something that I think a good coach does is to communicate that kind of thing so that there's a precedent. There's something to point back to, right? When a parent does say, hey, I want to talk to you about my kid's playing time. Well, no, if you remember, this is something that we just talked with the kid about. And if you want to know after your child comes to me what we talked about, I'll document it very well. I'll relay that on to you to make sure that they come back and relay the same things. But yeah, this is something that we really need to give them. And really honestly, one of the reasons why I like doing that is because very often, like I said at the very beginning, the experience is very different for the kid than what maybe the parent thinks it is in a lot of cases. Well, not always, but in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Well, because it's a natural thing because the player is there every day, as part of the team and competing in practice and participating in practice and making an impact in practice. But the parent, their only experience is that time during the game.
Yeah.
And I can say this. I don't have a problem saying this. There's an element of selfishness to it because as a parent, when I go to watch, when I go to a game that my kid's playing, on a team that my kid is part of is playing in that game, I selfishly want to see my kid play. Selfishly, it doesn't have anything to do with the team or winning. I would just like to see my kid play in that time.
And we know that. We all understand that. We know that.
Again, disappointment's not a bad thing, though, right? Disappointment's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And understanding roles and talking and communicating with our kids about those situations becomes more and more important as we get older.
Yeah.
Hey, life's rough.
It is.
It take every opportunity that we can to prepare our kids for a very difficult life, because it's they're in it. They're in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not coming to them. They're in it.
Yeah.
They're already in the life that is hard.
Yeah.
And I've never been a big fan of that. Once you graduate, you go into the great big world. Those kind of statements, because I believe they're there. They've already made. They're already experiencing those challenges and struggles.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to find those.
Which is why it's so important to give that experience to them. To not fight their battles for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude,
and there's so many things we could talk about.
You're not kidding.
We just started this conversation here.
Yeah, we're an hour into it. It looks like. I just looked at the clock, man. Coach, you got to get to practice.
I do. I have to get to practice.
We need to go ahead and just wrap this up then. Podcast number 81 today, last one of 2020. We turn the calendar page next week.
The last episode of 2020 reminds me of the one word challenge.
Yes, for 2021. We'll have to reveal that in the next episode, what those are.
Mine's going to have to be repeat. That's my one word challenge.
Repeat the discipline.
Repeat.
Not repeat. We don't want to repeat this past year, please.
Yeah.
Maybe for you personally.
Fall back, something.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that. We'll have to have a conversation.
Yeah, I've been pondering. I don't have it yet, but I've been pondering a word for next year.
I think I have mine.
All right.
I've been thinking about it a little bit, but
right.
Yeah, we'll see. We need some reflection too.
Okay.
Reflection on how much I failed in my previous one. Of all the disappointment that I had, and how I'm going to use that disappointment to correct my response to the situations that I'm in. Right.
That's right. Well, be careful driving out to practice.
All right, Coach. It was good talking to you.
Work those kids hard.
Yep, for sure. It's a pleasure as always, Coach. Have a good day, man.
You too. Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody.